Thank you so much to those of you in the public for coming here and attending this public interview. I want to say it again, just congrats to both candidates, Nabil and Noah, for coming here and answering these questions. Okay, I'd like to just, if everyone can quickly give our two candidates a little quick round of applause just before we begin. Thank you very much. And then I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm going to be interviewing you guys today. My name is William, and I'm the incoming student body president for next year. Unfortunately, our current AVP of local affairs couldn't make it today, but I believe she's on the Zoom, so she'll be watching from there. Another quick thing I want to get by before we get started is, for those of you in the audience, we do have a giveaway that is going on for all of these public interviews. The requirements are to attend 2 of the C-level public interviews that happened a week or so ago, and then attend 6 of these public interviews. If you do all of this, then you are entered into a raffle to be able to win AirPods, a MacBook Air, an iPad, and a couple of other things. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And with that being said, we'll get started. This whole process is going to take about 30 minutes, and each of you is going to have 2 minutes to answer each question. Once I call on your name, I'll start that 2-minute timer. We're kind of randomizing the order that we call you guys just for fairness. Yeah, with that being said, we'll just get started. So the first question is, please tell us about yourself and why you are interested in this position. In addition, please tell us about your past experiences and skills gained that make you qualified for the AVP of Local Affairs position. We're going to start with Nabil, and then we'll go to Noah. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. My name is Nabil Jawad. I'm a current first-year student at ASUCSD College, and I'm majoring in public health with a concentration in health policy and management sciences. I'm originally from Iraq, but I immigrated to San Diego when I was 4, and I've lived in San Diego ever since, so I'm a proud native of San Diego. I'm very passionate about policy, community engagement, and civic engagement. This is something that I started pursuing in high school. I joined a civic-based after-school leadership program called the Enterprise Fellows Program, which was in partnership with private entities. I also got the opportunity to intern with City of San Diego Deputy Chief Operating Officer, Ollie Corey. I helped her implement an emergency notification system. I also served as a student board member on the San Diego County Board of Education. Currently, I intern with City of San Diego District Council member at Cafe, and I also have the honor of serving as Government Affairs Director for the Office of Local Affairs this year. I'm really interested in this position because my time in local affairs was just such a productive time, and it was just very productive. And I saw the good that local affairs was able to do. I think local affairs has a very unique standpoint because it does deal directly with issues that are happening around us. And so I really love the directives of how we are able to quickly tackle issues that are happening around us and immediately see the outcome. And I think it also has very big broadness that we're able to collaborate with student organizations, local politics, or even local businesses. I really love that broadness and the wide range of just being able to run so many events and just being able to help so many people at once and connect so many people at once.
Thank you very much. Noah, your 2 minutes starts now.
Hi guys, my name is Kano Kavako. I am a second-year poli-sci student over at Revelle. I'm also from San Diego. I'm from the South Bay, which I'm also very proud native of. You don't see a lot of people from down there up here. And I do like to represent that everywhere I go because I'm so proud to be from such a diverse city. I just feel like it's very important to make that known and to make that seen. And I love that you see San Diego is also such a diverse place, and that's something that I want to uplift and support and make known with students. Ever since middle school, I was involved in student government just because I think as a generation we have such a powerful voice, and I love that students are so willing to get up and make it known and they want to be a part of something. So middle school, high school, and I'm very interested in being a part of that here now. I also intern with the city council. I'm with council member Ela Rivera. Over there, I'm a field rep intern, so I work a lot with constituents. I connect them with agencies to help solve their problems. One thing that I'm also very proud of is I organize a lot of community events over there. We're working on making San Diego a safe and more inclusive place for everybody. I also do policy work. So recently I worked on some of the briefs for UPass, which I'm also very proud of because as a UC San Diego Triton, I want to make sure that everything is accessible for all the students here. So because of my policy kind of background, I kind of know a lot about a lot of the local ordinances, some of the things that are on docket or have been on docket, and I'm really lucky and blessed to have that opportunity. And I want to be able to use that knowledge and that experience to kind of be the liaison and connect students between that, which is why I'm very interested in this position.
Thank you very much. The second question is, given the scope of the Office of Local Affairs events, from policy town halls to giveaway fairs, how would you balance logistical execution of events with intentional community impact? What would your process of event execution in relation to the office be? First, we'll start with Kanoa. You have 2 minutes.
I think something that's very important in regards to like any sort of community that you're in is building relationships. And one thing that makes UC San Diego stand out from a bunch of other colleges is the fact that we have all these 8 colleges and kind of like group students to build communities, and that's great, but I feel like we need to work on kind of building that intercollegiate relationship. And that's something that I would love to focus on in regards to logistics. I know each college has their own separate like referral events, AID events, and I know that we have events collectively as a campus, but I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect. And what I think we should do as local affairs would to be kind of have that more immediate and that more firsthand connection, so that when it comes to making these events, we have those people within those colleges that can help spread the word. It shouldn't just be us screaming at the students. If we have these relationships and we build these relationships, we can be one big college for the students that is getting the word out and making sure that people know we have these resources. We are here for them. And that it's, it's not some sort of battle. They don't have to go and find all these things by themselves, staying in their dorm rooms. We have things for them. And I want to make sure that people are aware of that. As much as it is amazing to have all these great events that you guys do, I really, really, really want to push that these events are known, because there's so many things that people kind of let go or aren't aware of, that I really think that that's very important.
Thank you. Adil, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think working as government affairs director this year, I think I became very familiar with the process of holding events. I think first and foremost, organization is the most important. Typically, when it comes to events and just kind of the process that I use to plan my events this year as government affairs director, typically it would start with, first of all, looking at need. That would be the first step, looking at need. Are students interested? Is there local politicians that are interested? Is there a need, and is this event intentional, and will it make some sort of productive and positive change? The second thing would be saying what is required of the event, whether it be consulting on Dresser Kelly or talking to the GCR team. What do we need to do to make this event happen? Some events need tap forms, whether it's tabling. Is there a giveaway that's happening? And so just really looking at those steps and saying what we need to make the event happen. And then of course, during all of those processes, I think it's important to make sure that you are updating everyone that's working with you on the event. So making sure you update all your coordinators, all your directors, and making sure that communication is just clear throughout the entire process. And then lastly, of course, social media is a big thing. So social media is, of course, how a lot of people are finding out about events. I think this year we really worked on being a more front-facing office and really updating our social media. And I think whether it be from people saying the post on our personal social media or reposted on our team social media, making sure that the information of the event is communicated to our graphics team, and so that they have enough time, first of all, to make the graphic, and that we have enough time to advertise the event. So we typically, local affairs this year, we typically advertise about a week and a half before each event. And also collaborating with other student organizations and saying if they can advertise their event. So this year with, for example, with the town hall with Councilmember Joe Pava, we advertised with the Democrats of UCSD and Republicans of UCSD, similarly for the No Immigrant Rights Workshop.
Thank you. The next question is, how would you describe your leadership style, and how would it shape your approach to running an office with 13 diverse staffers? Hadil, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I would describe my leadership very much as being a big listener. I'm a very big listener to those in my office, to students that I'm working for, and just kind of staff and pro staff and just exec. I think it's really important to listen and see what needs to happen. I think it's really important, especially in the beginning of years, to make that dynamic, to make sure that every person on your team knows that they are valued and knows that they have agency within their position and knows that they are encouraged to pursue events and work on events that have to do with their passions. I think that really shows in the events that we do. And this is something that I really wanted to implement in my team this year, of just making sure that everyone was working on issues that they were passionate about. And I think it really showed in our events. And I think with that being said, I think again, it's always important to have really good, open and clear communication. Communication is one of the best things that you possibly do as a leader. And I think it's also really important that this communication is lined with empathy and compassion. I was the first year in this role this year as government affairs director, and there were a lot of things that I got wrong. There were a lot of things that I kind of messed up on, especially since it was my first year. And just kind of having that empathetic and compassionate communication from Nina really helped guide me throughout the role. And so I hope to continue to do that for other students next year. And it's important to, check on the people on my team, whether it be, how are you? Hey, I noticed you were maybe a little off today during the meeting. Do you need support? I think it's always important to continuously check in with your team and ultimately make sure that they feel they are being valued, heard, and seen.
Thank you. Noah, you have the floor.
I think the leadership style that I like to go about with is a transparency type of style. I think in a lot of places and offices and teams you go and they make it known that we're a team, we work together, we help each other, we collaborate, but it's more than just saying words. I want to make sure that that's actually being known and that's actually being done. It's more than just being a listener in the sense of, like, I'm here if you, like, I want to hear what you have to say. I want to make sure that it's also about having a safe space. And I feel like that's something that a lot of places kind of toss out the door, because someone might think like, oh, I know I can speak up, like I know I can say my mind, but do you feel comfortable enough to do that? Can you trust that the people you're talking to will actually make a change and actually make a difference? So in regards to that, I like making it known beforehand that no matter what you say, even if I don't agree with it, even if somebody across the room doesn't agree with it, it's your opinion and it's your values, and that's something you should stand by. Although we are a very collaborative team and we're a team with the same motivations and goals, we are all our own separate people and we all have our own separate minds. And I don't think anyone should feel pressure to think that they have to follow this cookie cutter type of idea, because that's just impossible. And on top of that, what makes a team so great is when it's filled with such diverse thoughts and minds and ideas and things like that. So I wouldn't want to force anyone to think that they have to say something to appease me or they have to do something to appease another person. They should be able to carry out their goals and motivations in the way they want, while also respecting us as a team and a group. And I think that's something that needs to be planned, and I think that needs to be something that's set out. And I just think it's very important, because once we reach that transparency is there and it's not some sort of like words on a paper, it's not just some sort of saying, but it's something that's actually being lived and taught and done. And from there, collaboratively, we can work together as a really powerful team.
Thank you. The next question is, with 13 other staff members in the office, divided across events and marketing, government affairs, and community affairs, what does showing up for your team look like to you as an AVP? We'll start off with Kanoa, you're up next.
I think when it comes to showing up for your team, you have to be willing to put some stuff aside if it helps for the betterment of the group, in the sense that when you join such a powerful group of people that are all working together just to make the school a better place, you're gonna have to be able to have such good self-organization that you know that there are some things that are priorities and some things that are not. For example, if I had some plans one day, but they're so minuscule and my team asked me to do something else that day, of course I'm gonna throw those minuscule plans because that's not a priority. What needs to happen is I need to set what's important to me, what's not important to me, what I'm willing to give up, what I'm not willing to give up. And I think that that's just a good set of boundaries to have across the board as a team. It's never gonna be a perfect setup where you're gonna be able to have everything your way, or everything's gonna fit your schedule, or everything's gonna go according to plan. You have to be able to be flexible with everything that is thrown at you, to the point where truthfully and honestly and realistically, you're gonna have to change things and you're gonna have to be okay with it. Because at the end of the day, you did join this position because you want to make a change, because you want to make a difference. It shouldn't be something that you feel is like a burden or a task or a job. I'm here because I am truly, truly passionate about local affairs, and I'm passionate about my city, and I want to make sure that all the students that come from across the state, across the country, across the world can live in this city that I'm so proud of, the best of its capabilities. And if I'm so passionate about that, me, as well as I hope all the other people on my team, also feel so strongly that when it comes to certain things, you're gonna have to set aside some stuff if it means that you're getting towards the bigger end of the goal.
Thank you, Adriel.
Yeah, I think showing up for my team, firstly, it means being present, whether that be physically or mentally. I think it's important to show that you are there in that space with them, and also listening to their opinions, hearing them speak, and really looking at you guys and really actively listening to them. I think that was the big thing that I really appreciated in my time with AF was just, and I really noticed, I think during my time was when people actively listened to me and when they were actually taking my opinions and what I'm saying to account. So I think that's the first thing, is just being there and of course trying my best to always be there and prioritizing the role. I think the second thing for showing up would be to continuously check in with my team, regardless of how it be. I know that we're all students here, I know it gets stressful with midterms and finals. And I think it's important to continue checking in with them. I think it's important to celebrate the small accomplishments, such as happy birthdays and anniversaries. I think it's important to have a well-bonded team and know that I'm there for them, obviously within the role, but know that they can also come to me with any questions, comments, concerns, when we're in about the role or about balancing the role or otherwise. I think it's important to know that I am there wholly for them and to work with them. I think, of course, also planning events, and like I said, especially for first year team members, I think planning events can be especially daunting, and especially difficult. So I think also just providing that gentle guidance and just helping them, again, take their own agency, but also helping them when they need it and really encouraging them to ask for help if they do need it. I think, again, it's always important to know that I am there to help them or to talk to them. Their events are my events, and ultimately, we all reflect our office, and it's important that we work together. But
Thank you. As AVP, how would you actively support your directors and coordinators in the logistical and strategic aspects of event planning, while also empowering them to take ownership of their own initiatives and grow as independent leaders within the office? Video.
yeah, I really think this begins with organization, especially when first starting an event or beginning to plan an event. Like I said, it's important to know the steps that we need to take to follow the event. So if I know that a director of mine or a coordinator of mine is thinking about planning an event, then letting them know what they're gonna need to do. Do they need to fill out a TAP form? What processes do they need to go through? And that way they can organize themselves and really follow a timeline and stay organized. And I think it's also important that I can, like I said, I continue to support them and just help them when they need help, whether it be on forms, whether it's making food order forms, or maybe advertising. Obviously, it's gonna be my second year NAS, obviously I have some networking, I have some connections within this. And so I think it's important to continue to help them and really show them strategies and what to do for planning events. I think delegation is also very important. I think that's another really big strength that I plan to implement as AVP, is really knowing what the strengths of your team members are and who is best at doing what. I think especially when it comes to like coordinator position and director positions, who has the skills to do the job and kind of, especially for bigger events, it's really, delegation is super, super important, and just organizing your team, but also organizing yourself.
You have 2 minutes.
I think in regards to this type of situation where you have a team working on such rigorous things and events, I think a tricky thing that's also very important is accountability. A lot of people kind of look at accountability as like a bad thing or a negative thing. There's this connotation, but that's so not right. What I want to establish in a group situation where I'm working with a team on something like this is accountability isn't something wrong. It's something that helps us all together. So when it comes to organization, I also think that it is very important to be very concise and be very clear about what's going on and what the goal is. I feel a lot of times in group settings, like someone thinks like, oh, if it's not necessarily my firsthand project, that I can step aside, but that's not true. Although in regards to the ownership thing, although it's not your necessary project, we're still a team, which means you're still supposed to have your part in it, even if you're not the firsthand planner. I think that that's also something that needs to be set right hand in the beginning. That's something that I really like to emphasize, because I want people to know that it's totally okay if you mess up. It's totally okay if I mess up, because I know I will, because we all do. Because again, we're humans and we're college students and we're planning all these things at once and dealing with all these things at once. But I want you to know that if anything were to go wrong, you're not alone and you don't have to take that upon yourself to fix. If anything were to go wrong, I don't want you to take that as a failure. I want you to take that as a lesson, just as I would. So I think it's very important that we are clear and concise setting up a plan. Then we organize who's doing what, and then we move forward from there. And then I also just want everyone to know that we, again, as a team, we will rely on one another. If you have something pop up, ask one of us and we can help you. If you aren't sure who to reach out to, ask one of us, and I'm sure we have someone that we can reach out to for you. We have this vast network of connections and we have all these capabilities within us, and I don't want anyone to think that just because they've been directed this one thing, that it's their only sole job and that it's this big, big, big weight on themselves. I want to again work as a team.
Thank you. And the last question before we move to our public questions is, the Office of Local Affairs has increasingly shifted its focus inward, prioritizing issues that directly impact the UCSD student community, in addition to broader San Diego advocacy. What is one initiative you would launch or strengthen to better engage the UCSD campus community in identifying and addressing local affairs issues? Noah, you have 2 minutes.
I think that there's a lot of different initiatives and issues that I would love to bring up and I would love to bring to the table. But one that I am very passionate about is the housing crisis within San Diego, which is something that very, very directly impacts students here. San Diego is one of the most expensive cities in the country. There's no doubt about that. And I don't want that to be a reason why people feel discouraged to come to school here nor continue their schooling here. Especially like at the time we are right now when everybody's trying to secure their housing for next year or trying to find some place to stay. That shouldn't be a worry that's on the forefront of a student's mind when they're trying to work about finals and midterms and their jobs and things like that. So an initiative that I want to do is I want to work with the local orgs that we have that are here and they're present and they're ready to give out these resources and give out this help, but they need that connection there. There's the Westlake House, there's the SDHC, there's all these orgs. They help students, they help low-income families, which I know we have a good population of here. We have a lot of student parents, for example. When it comes to getting student housing here, it can sometimes be a hassle, or even just trying to find someplace around La Jolla is a hassle. One thing about La Jolla is it's somewhat segmented off the rest of San Diego, and that's a barrier that I want to break. I want students to know that there's more outside of La Jolla. There's this grand city, there's this giant city, and it's full of so many different opportunities. And I want to make sure that all of those opportunities that are kind of blocked out are brought into UCSD. I want to make things more accessible, I want to make things more available, and I want to make things more ready for students. So I want to make tenant protections, I want to make, when it comes to like how do you lease, how do you find a house, like I want to help students feel like that's not such a scary thing. I want to make like lessons, for example, that we can give to students to kind of show them what the process is, what is it like, what should you look for, what should you stay away from, what powers do you have over all of these landlords and things, and I want them to feel like having a place to sleep at night isn't something to be worried about.
Thank you. Adila, you have 2 minutes.
I think one of my main initiatives as AVP would definitely be continuing to foster our relationships with student organizations on campus. I think this is something that we really did great at doing this year, and I think this is part of what made us such a forward-facing office. However, I also want to emphasize not only collaborating with new student organizations, but also going back and collaborating with ones that we've already collaborated with. I think a lot of the organizations that we did collab with really liked the event, really liked collaborating with us, and I think it was really productive for both us. And students would often tell us that they really appreciate it. For example, the Mom and Maple Mixer earlier this month, students with dependents, they really expressed that they would love to collaborate with us again, but unfortunately, due to a lack of bandwidth or a lack of time, school year is already ending, we aren't able to collaborate with them again. And I think we can first start doing this by just being more organized with who we're collaborating with and more organized about our events. And this can start with simply a spreadsheet of just knowing who we've collaborated with, the name of the student board, who our point of contact is, how our experience was collaborating with them last time, were they communicative, were they responsive. I think especially because we're planning a lot of events and a lot of rigorous events in such a short amount of time, knowing these things from the get-go can really get us to hit the ground running and really continue on. And I think it's important to just continue fostering those relationships and just kind of be that conduit for student boards to know that they are being heard and seen and know that we are working with them. And I think I'm also very proud to be a Middle Eastern woman and be Arab, and I'm very proud of my culture. And I think a lot of Middle Eastern student organizations on campus right now may feel a little overlooked and underrepresented and even marginalized. And so I think I have the advantage to leverage my culture to kind of really help repair those relationships and rebuild those relationships. And I've already begun doing this year. I supported to fund the Muslim Tech Lab, their scholars events, and I also supported funding their Eid celebration. And I think it's really important, again, that we celebrate our student organizations, work with them, and make them and have them know and make it clear that we work for them as well.
Thank you both very much for answering those prepared questions. Before we shift to a couple of senator questions, I'd like to just remind everyone in the audience that we have this QR code. If you scan it, you can ask a question, and then we will ask those in a couple of minutes, I assume. So yeah, just feel free to scan that QR code and ask questions. And then, yeah. So the next segment that we're gonna move to is our Senate question time. Senators will have 1 minute to ask questions, and candidates will have 2 minutes to answer them. Do we have any senators or members of the association who would like to ask a question right now? Remind me of your name.
Helvig.
Elving. You have the floor.
Hi, thank you guys so much for your responses. This one is for Noah. You mentioned that you helped work on the UPass referendum. Could you just tell me a little bit about what you did and what you learned and how it would help you in your role?
So like I mentioned, I'm an intern with City Council District 9, that's Councilmember Ela Rivera, and Ela Rivera is on the board for MTS. So I do some of the policy work in regards to MTS, so about every Thursday, he has some meetings, maybe like once or twice a month. So when we have items come in, I will write the briefs, which means I have to look at all the items and I have to read it and I have to summarize it. And it gives me a lot of knowledge about what's going on in regards to public transportation in San Diego. So one of the items that got brought up at MTS was the UPass, and it was brought up, the referendum was mentioned. And I was actually one of the people that wrote the briefs, or that wrote the briefs for the council member. So I kind of had to read the logistics of it, the ideas, like the funding and things like that. And then I summarized it and I gave it to him. I attended the meeting. And it was actually really interesting to see as an audience member what other people, who weren't even college students, come to say during public comment about how important UPass is. I also spoke a little bit about it, just how important it is to college students. So one of the things that I learned was actually how important it is to students. San Diego, again, because it's such a big city, a lot of students don't have cars or can't just like walk around or can't just take a bike to work. They rely heavily on this public transportation. The statistics are there. You know, it's very, very hard to get parking on UCSD, that's no doubt about it. So because of that, we have to rely on buses to get to work, to pay for our schooling or to pay for our housing. And without public transportation, so many opportunities for students would be taken away. So just to see that number and just to see how many students even on campus are so passionate about was very, very, very refreshing to see, because when it comes to these direct things that directly impact students, I like being able to see that there are other students there that want to use their voice, and that want to make it known that this is important to us, this needs to stay. So yeah.
Thank you. And just for reason of fairness, I just wanted to ask, Hale, if you'd like to talk a little bit about that question, or if there's anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, so when it comes to the past, that was also something that I worked closely with. So I met with Eddie and I met with William during winter break, and we really discussed how to plan advertising the UPass and really getting attention to it. So I did a lot of groundwork when it comes to that. So I was passing out flyers, I was passing out boba, I was passing out fan, so and just really passing out flyers and kind of really promoting the event. And that was really an organizational moment for me and kind of learning how to delegate work, especially among my team, just kind of encourage them once again to work together to really get this all done together. And I think that was a very unifying moment also for our office. Just, you know, all of us working on the same initiative and a lot of AS working on the same initiative. It was a very unifying moment. And I think it taught me a lot about AS and organizational within AS. And I think it also taught me the power of social media, and just kind of how social media is integral into our office. I think I really loved the informative post that we did during UPass, of just saying why you should vote for UPass, or the pros of voting for UPass, the cons of voting for UPass. And so I really think it should be another initiative that we can implement next year, is making more informative social media posts, because I think there's a lot of really big, complex issues which we aren't able to directly have events on. For example, right now, big issue is immigration. Obviously, we aren't able to directly have events on that. What we can do is give students resources. We are a credible site. We have the resources to really gather information. And so we can gather the information and then give it to students so they can at least feel empowered to, you know, approach resources and maybe ask for help. And I think, again, we obviously can't have every single event that we would like to. And obviously we are limited in some areas, but I think it's important that if we are not directly helping students, then we are informed.
Thank you very much. Would any other senators like to ask a question or, yeah, Eduardo?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I know, a lot of times, when it comes to issues that come up at local level or even state, federal, a lot of times students are engaged in their academics and usually don't engage as much in addressing a lot of the issues that are facing their communities locally, not because of lack of interest, but because of lack of capacity of time. So what like tools and, I guess, I guess what kind of tools would you use if you were selected to be EVP of local affairs to engage students in these different types of habits? And
We'll start off with the deal and then we'll go to Echo.
Yeah, going back to information, students can't be engaged with issues that they don't know about. Information and awareness is integral for issues like these. This is something that I worked very close with the Sierra Government Affairs Director, and that was really my focus, was kind of, I think I noticed that a lot of students really felt discouraged and felt a sense of apathy towards the politics that they're seeing at the local level, with budgets happening at the local, state, and federal level. I think it was something that's very stressful for students, and something that they just don't wanna, approach because they don't see their place in it. So I think first and foremost, is making it known to students that this is something that does affect them. This year, I planned a Know Who Represents You workshop, which encouraged students to find out who represents them at the local, state, and federal level. And that was a very successful event. And I think a lot of students said that they left with a sense of kind of knowing better about their council members, Councilmember Joe LaCava, and kind of knowing more about Carol Lawson-Reamer, who's the state senator that represents them. And I think just kind of letting them have information and not really urging them to act. I think sometimes urging people to act, especially, can be really daunting. But I think using social media and using similar tabling events, using similar events, simply to educate people and simply to give them information. Another thing is bringing politics to them. This year, I also helped to host a town hall with Councilmember Joe LaCava, and a lot of students felt that even though, Councilmember Joe LaCava sometimes didn't exactly give them the answer that they wanted or really answer how they were expecting, I think just simply talking to him and being in the room with him and knowing that he took the time out of his day to be here and work with them. I think that was a very productive meeting for everyone. Yeah, I think social media and just kind of trying to arm people with information as much as you can and awareness. Whether that be through tabling. I'm actually currently planning a zine tabling where it's a zine of right now recent local, federal, and state politics. And so first of all, making politics accessible, making civic issues accessible, whether it be through social media, whether it be through tabling, whether it be through events. These are things that are really integrated in every event that we do, and it's important to think about that.
Thank you. Noah, you have 2 minutes.
I think something that is very useful in regards to trying to catch the attention of students is giving them a reason. I think when it comes to local ordinances and politics at local, state, and federal levels, it just seems like a lot of information, and when you put a lot of information in front of a student who's already trying to grasp what just happened in the lecture 5 minutes ago, they're clearly just gonna look the other way. But what needs to happen is we need to, I think, make it more organized and more pinpointed. There's certain topics and there's certain issues, for example, affordability, cost of living, things like that that directly impact students. And if I think we kind of just put that straight forward without trying to butterfly it or make it look glittery, just something that affects you, then that makes them more kind of engaged and more kind of like, okay, well, let me look at this and give this a chance. Because I think if we're just gonna bombard them realistically, they're not gonna wanna listen. What you need to go through is with a little bit of a more softer approach. There's just so many things that they aren't aware of, and it sucks because, again, like there's all these resources that they could totally take advantage of, but they just don't know about it. But they don't know about it because there was nothing right there in front of them. When you're trying to handle school and you're trying to handle jobs and you're trying to handle your social life, it's understandable that you're not gonna take the time out of your day to do research on local ordinances that were just passed. That's just being real. When you have the local affairs office doing the work that they do and trying to be that liaison, we should be able to make it more easy and more accessible. And with the accessibility comes making things very transparent and very easy. We shouldn't have to make something hard for people to see, or we shouldn't make it difficult for people to get access to. It should be something that's very easy. For example, housing again is a big one. There's the tenants ordinance that was just passed, which says if any tenant that was just wrongfully kicked out of their house, they get a 3-month stipend in order to relocate. the amount of students, even personal friends who told me that their landlords gave them 3 weeks to leave, obviously that's not right, there's no space for that. But I think what we need to do,
I don't mean to.
no, it's okay.
That is time. With that being said, I believe, we don't have, any more time for, Senator, questions, so we are gonna move on to our public question, which we have one. This public question is directed at Kanoa. However, again, we're gonna give both applicants the opportunity to answer it to the best of their ability. So that being said, we'll start off with Kanoa and then we'll go to Nabil. The question is, given the frequent tension between developer-aligned city council blocks and the need of student renters, what specific strategies will you pursue to prevent student priorities from being sidelined in favor of commercial interests? No, you have 2 minutes.
So one barrier that I think we really need to tackle, which is something that I would want to do if I were to be in office, is kind of make people know, especially the politicians and the older people of San Diego's, just because we're college students doesn't mean our voice is any less loud. If anything, our voice is louder because we are constantly overlooked by everyone else in the city. We have reason to be louder to make more noise. So when it comes to the tension and all the housing and stuff, I would love to be a loud vocal voice, but not only that, I want to make sure that everyone else on campus feels empowered to. But we need to give them those opportunities and we need to give them those resources in order to do so. Recently, there was just this AI ban, so a lot of conglomerate landlords and businesses would use AI to basically get more rent out of people in San Diego, and that directly impacts students. Because students just need a place to stay, they just need a place to live. And they're willing, unfortunately, to do whatever it takes to get that because they have no other choice. So thankfully that ordinance was passed, but again, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So what we need to do is I think we need to make more opportunities for students to be able to have their voices said. I think we need to invite them to more meetings. I think we need to make those more apparent that you need to come out and you need to say your piece. Because if it doesn't, then people are just gonna constantly overlook us. And I know that we have the capabilities and I know we have it inside all of us as students who are passionate to make a change.
You, and Nabil, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, housing was an issue that I think realized the gravity and the severity of this year. And I heard a lot about it from my lobby coordinator, Mike Warsaw. He sits on the UCPG board, and that was frequently one of his updates was the struggles of housing and just kind of how developers just refuse to build, especially with La Jolla, how they have rules about, you know, they don't really like skyscrapers, they don't really want to build too high, but also they don't really want a lot of tenant buildings. And so I think one of the biggest things would be, again, getting students in those rooms and having them share their voices. And I'm really grateful that Mike does sit on the UCPG board and continues to advocate for students. There's a lot of student housing bills being passed right now, actually. Right now, the Mesa Costa line was actually just approved, I think, for housing, just an update that I shared last week. And I think, again, it's just important to really guard students with information and let them know their rights. This year, I also helped to organize a renters' rights workshop, and work with Dad to work to organize information for a renters' rights workshop, and those flyers that let students know their rights, again, how to get a lease, how to sign a lease and all that information. But ultimately, I think it's important that students are just in those spaces advocating for themselves and just really advocating for our campus. I think La Jolla does have a very strained relationship with UCSD students, and this is working with District 6 Councilmember County is something that I hear about a lot. Actually, recently during one of our budget town halls, one of the constituents went on a rant about how he really despised UCSD students for all the congestion and traffic they made and all the construction. And so I think it's also important to start working with local organizations and local business partners. There's a lot of local nonprofits, there's a lot of local businesses, and I think it's important to really reaffirm the idea that we are an asset to La Jolla and we are an asset to San Diego. And an investment in our students is ultimately an investment back into the city itself. We bring a lot of money into La Jolla, we bring a lot of money into San Diego itself, and also just a lot of creative minds, a lot of intelligent minds. That is something that is directly impacting them. And I think we just need to show our importance.
Thank you very much. And with that being said, that concludes all of the questions that we have for both of you guys today. Before we end things, I want to. All right, okay, this is the form. So for those of you who are in the public, we'd really love it if you guys could fill out this QR code. And it helps us when it comes to making a decision on which applicant will be moving forward. So it'd be amazing if those of you who are in the public right now could scan that QR code. I think it's also a form of attendance too, so if you're in the giveaway, This can also help you log your attendance, but yeah. With that being said, again, I just want to say to both of you just thank you so much, for being so like civically engaged. Coming out here, doing the written application and coming to the private interview and then coming to this public interview. Especially when the process has been like very quick and, it's just been a lot. So just thank you both so much again. Yeah, you'll be hearing back from us very soon. So yeah, thank you guys so much. If we could get a quick big round of applause for both. Thank you.